bringing our guests right here. And again, that is Greg Glover and Ben Bobick from Local 3 News joining us in studio right here on Off the Bench Radio. And gentlemen, thank you so much for coming down here and hanging out with us. Football season is upon us. How's it feel?
I just want to say it's an honor. I say that every time. It's an honor to be here. It really is.
Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, just you guys are great, man. It's a lot of fun being on here, and I'm happy that I got to bring Greg with me this time too.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Can you believe the weather as we're getting into football season? It's nearly mild out there. You know?
I mean, nice healthy sweat, not too hot, right? For sure. But it's good to see kind of these student athletes and band members getting acclimated to the conditions, because the first few weeks of the regular season are pretty hot out there, and you'll see a lot of cramps and stuff like that. So, but it's just good to talk football, good to talk high school communities and athletics, period. So, gearing up for another year of, obviously the Coca-Cola Red Zone, year 31 right here, starting next week. Again, right here from 8 to 11 on Talk 102.3. Friday Night Football, I believe, cranks up this coming Friday for you guys, right? So I kind of talk about that, and the first game of the week is on the books.
Yeah, this Friday. And it's funny, the vibe around the station, and this happens every year. It's like, oh, really snuck up on us. I'm like, and I made a joke today, and I'm like, we say that, but, I've been around, for as long as I have, and, it's just weird. They play football in the fall every single year I've been alive. So, I mean, I don't know what do you mean here? Mid-August, it's boom, we're ready to go. But it's a little bit weird this year, though, with only having, Georgia kicking off and then having to wait around for Tennessee at least for another week. But, yeah, we're pumped up. Our first show, we have a new set, too. So we've been brainstorming some fun ideas about how we're kind of sort of going to present some of the stuff in the new set over at Local 3. First game of the week, Coahuila Creek in Northwest Woodfield. We haven't been to the Creek in a few years. I mean, I think it was about maybe 3 years ago, I think, is the last time we went. When they were having a pretty good season. So excited to be back there. I know it's a big-time game, big rivalry game. I know the Colts consider it maybe their biggest rivalry game of the season. And it's going to be a lot of fun to be down there. And those first few weeks, I mean, all throughout the season is great, but, you can't, emulate those first, first couple of weeks, man. Everyone is just through the roof, ready to go on the sidelines and ready to go out there and show what they've been working on. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, looking forward to that for sure. We'll be there as well, just kind of checking them out and get some digital coverage for sure. So looking forward. I think it's our first visit to the Creek, so looking forward to checking that out and seeing if Coahuila Creek can continue some they had some pretty good momentum at the end of the year last year. They got a big win over Ringgold, and Ringgold's going to be looking to get off to a good start against Dade County in Trenton on Thursday. So a lot going on Thursday and Friday this week, Justin.
Right. Now, Greg, obviously, just learning more about you. Obviously, for those that don't know, you were a former member of the Pride of Southland drum major, Pride of the Southland marching band.
Got to do that big strut every Saturday.
And we talk about all the time, what it takes to be an athlete at this level, football, baseball, softball, that just the dedication it takes. Just talk maybe kind of your experiences briefly about what it takes to kind of the work that the bands put in, the marching, and then just what it takes. It's a year-round commitment, just like any other sport.
A band parent will always say those kids work as hard as the football team, and having been in band at all the different levels, I can say that's not exactly true, but we do work hard. We work hard in the heat and all the way into the cold weather too. And just when we were talking about the heat there, I was thinking about at the University of Tennessee when the uniforms were 3 layers of wool, because you have to have them last through the years. They're so expensive, so they have to be durable. But when it's the first game or two of the season, one year I was there, we still had the AstroTurf, and it was opening game against UCLA. The Bruins were in town, and, the big open on television comes on, and they go to the reporter down there. I was standing beside him, and he had one of those thermometers, and it was 135 degrees, I think, on the AstroTurf because of the heat. And so then we were in those uniforms and everything. But, yeah, a lot of hard work, but a lot of camaraderie. Talking about the opening weekend here, the opening Friday in Georgia. Gosh, some great bands. Dalton, Ringgold, Heritage, Dade, Lafette. I mean, you name, and Coahuila Creek. I was fortunate enough to get them as our band of the week back when they were a brand new school. And what an exciting time, because those kids and that new director got to pick the fight song, figure out what their traditions were going to be. What are they going to call themselves? How are they going to react and all that kind of thing? They got to set the standard where most of us went to our high schools probably, 50, 60, 100 years after they were founded, and just kind of fell into place. They got to determine that for the next generations coming up. So a lot of fun.
So, like you mentioned, Greg, you mentioned those North Georgia, bands and those programs there, obviously like Ringgold and Heritage, just to name a few, going across the line in Tennessee. Is there one that kind of sticks out to you that might have surprised you? Like you're thinking, oh, this is, I have a preset, notion about these guys, but then you hear them on the field or in the stands and you're like, whoa, they blew me away. Because a couple that we've talked about it on our show the last couple of years is, like a Walker Valley Mustang band. They've really improved. And, Justin and I talk about this, if you're in front of them, they'll set off your loud environment notification on your watch. And obviously the Brainerd and Tyner, drumline battles are classic. So kind of talk about some of those in Tennessee.
I love Walker Valley because their band has their own seating section. They're not taking up part of the home stands or the visitor stands. They are in the end zone, and you're going to hear them. And they play, I think, at the end of the game as well. People stick around to see their post game. So many great bands. The Signal Mountain, Hickson's had a good program. East Hamilton's had a great program. Some of the smaller programs from Polk and Ray, and Ray's not a small program. Sorry about that. Cowboy Joe out there somewhere. I'm sorry. But so many great programs around here. And I noticed this year that many were getting artificial turf.
Yep.
That's going to be a game changer. I saw Howard's going in off the interstate. Soddy Daisy has been putting on some video of theirs. I think their show is called Rain of Fire. I heard one of their tunes is Night on Bald Mountain, which is if you've been on a ride at Disney World, you're going to recognize that song, right? But that's going to be a game changer for the sharing of the facilities by the athletic teams, because some of the bands have to rehearse in a parking lot on the asphalt. So when you can get that artificial turf in there and everyone share it because you're not going to make ruts in it, that's a game changer for everybody.
And we did a show at the Ottawa High School turf a couple weeks ago when we were joined by Goose Manning and Christian Maynard at Tyner, and they were kind of talking about that too. It's like just the wear and tear, the maintenance, not having to paint the field. That's going to be a game changer for, like you said, not just those teams, but also everybody that's going to share it, including the community. So, so Ben, you still get out there and get some shots for Friday Night Football. So, any bands that stick out to you as far as like bringing the heat, bringing the punch? And
it's got to be Ringgold's band, man.
Oh,
I mean, they're just it is just unbelievable. That just you look at that, and I feel like. And you could speak maybe more to it, Greg, but I look at Ringgold and it's like that's how it's supposed to be run. The communication from the director to everybody involved, and there's so the X's and O's, if you will. It's just it's excellent. They take pride in what they do and in being a good band. I think that has something to do with it as well. And I remember being at Coella actually a few years ago, and not even on our game of the week, but just down there shooting the game. I mean, they really had a great production too. And I like the spin you put on it there, Greg. Was like I never even thought about that being a newer school. That's big time. You'd be able to kind of make your mark on it, if you will. But absolutely in Walker Valley, yeah, I'm glad you guys brought up them too in this section, because they get loud. And you know what? And I think of just this past season with the run they had, the football team at least, into the state semifinals, and they've never made it that far before, and the band getting to go along with them, and they're bringing the crowd, they're bringing the noise, and that when it ties all in together, that's what Friday Night Lights are all about, and that's what makes it fun. But Ringgold, I mean, it's just second to none, man.
One thing I'm always curious about, when they're out there marching, is everybody playing, or do you certain guys just play certain? It seems to me like you're marching and blowing the trumpet or something. And also, what's like the most underrated instrument in a marching band?
Gosh, that's a good question. You can't do a John Philip Sousa march without a piccolo, and that may be the only time you hear them, but you've got to have it in there, right? I was a tuba player, so I'm always going to default to the sousaphone, the big thing that wraps around you there. But, it depends on kind of what you're playing and how you're playing. If they're playing for competition and you've got something where you want to feature a solo, you might want that guy or gal to save their lips for that very important part. So they may walk with their instrument in front of their mouth and just be saving it, But if it's in the stands and your team is slightly behind or way ahead, I bet everyone's going to be blowing every note, because that's how you get the excitement out of your system, right?
You've talked to a lot of our local student athletes, just the the calm demeanor they have, and they're not stammering over their words and getting nervous and sweating like I would at 16 for sure.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's awesome. I think a lot of them, I think that's where like the social media age may take over.
Sure.
You see a lot more on your phone and whatnot, and they could see a lot of their role models and how they sort of act and how they present themselves and everything that kind of comes along with it. So they're taking advantage of like, hey man, this is my chance to go out there and be like this, and I think it's cool. And it's definitely a little bit different. That's for sure.
Yeah, Greg, kind of back on the bands. We talk about it here on the show. Just kind of the growth of sports is such as equipment. We've seen jerseys change, helmets change. Obviously, 97 Sports is doing stuff with helmets. What is it? Have you noticed any what's the growth pattern been like with bands? Is there like an instrument change? Is there equipment changes? Is there anything that maybe you're thinking like it's keeping up? And then also like, what's like the fundraising aspect of band? And what do you think like maybe something you've done where there's just how do they get support and what drives the bands these days?
Let me see if I could go backwards in that and remember all of them. Let's talk about fundraising. First, you were talking about souvenir helmets, mini helmets and everything. Gosh, I would encourage you, even if you're not a band parent, find your high school band on Facebook. See when they have a car wash or a ham sale or selling oranges or something like that. And even if your car's not dirty, go drive through, give them $10, $20, something like that, because all that helps them get to the games and maybe postseason and all that kind of stuff. Anything you can do to help these music programs just be so appreciated. That's the fundraising aspect of it. As far as updates on instruments, I would say that the biggest update is more groups using technology, electronics, whether it's music, keyboards and whatnot, or even recorded music and things like that to meld into their actual live playing. I think more of that's going on. And also more ways to teach marching drill. I know University of Tennessee is using a program this year that it's an app on your phone and uses a little vibration to let you know when you hit the right spot or don't. So they're trying that technology out this year after 125 years of using paper to chart yourself out and move yourself around on the field. And what was the first thing? I've forgotten the first thing. I thought I was going to get them all there.
I think that was it.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, if you want to talk about like selection process for like high school versus what does it really take to become a member of the Pride of the Southland, or at that level, just high school, college.
Tell you what, they've started doing auditions last year for even current members because. Thankfully, for some reason, I can't track it down, but even in high schools around here, we're in a growth period, it seems, for marching bands and people wanting to get involved, and especially in college now with all these great trips, now the expanded playoff system and all that kind of thing. But yeah, you've got to be on your craft. You've got to be able to take direction. You've got to know how to march, and you have to know how to play, because even at University of Tennessee, I think they're up to 425 or 435 or something like that. It's a large group, and they're still turning people away. Sadly, some people that may even have been in band last year just because the talent coming up is so good. So practice, kids, practice.
Well, even at the FCS level, there are opportunities there because they have a playoff, right? They have a 16 team playoff or whatever, and a lot of those schools are making at least one. They call it the money game to an FBS school or whatever, but that's a good opportunity for them to get some experience in a high level atmosphere like that.
UTC Marching Mocs making the trip to Knoxville for that opening game, and they are going to march on the field. Sent Randall Coleman, the director, a note tonight to see what they're doing, and their show is called Uncaged, and it's Nelly Furtado, Fly Like a Bird, Freebird is in there, Blackbird by the Beatles, so they may be doing part of that show on the field at Neyland Stadium on opening weekend.
Looking forward to seeing how both of those bands do for sure. And going back to, I guess, the Friday night aspect, I guess this question is for both of you guys. What one thing or several things make Friday Night Football, not just the show, but just the Friday Night Lights feel for high school football so special to you?
Man, that's a good question because I feel like it's just the sense of community. Yep. That's just beats it. When I moved into the sports director role, so this is the third year I think I'm doing the show. in the studio, and people ask me, do you miss going out there every week? And I say, yeah, because it was almost like, to me, a mini college game day in a way, where, on game day, they get to go to a different school every week, and they kind of take in their traditions and take in what they get to do. That's what, I got to do here in the area. 1 week we're in South Pittsburgh, the next we're in Dalton, the next week we're in Bledsoe County, the next week we're in Ray County, and every week is something different, and it is the game of the week, so you get, a lot of the times it's a big game with playoff implications. It's a rivalry game that takes it all in. So it's that sense of community, knowing that there are people in the stands, whether that be students or alumni and parents that have so much invested in what's going on. Whether that's the band taking place or the cheerleaders as well. And some people have dance teams and might be youth night. And now you have some of the younger kids that are there getting recognized, and other sports getting recognized, and people having their traditions and the smells of the concession stand, the sounds of a Friday night football, like the week, and just, I always say, one of my favorite parts is every week is the anthem. Is sitting there, and I love being on. I'm obviously fortunate because I have a camera in my hand, so I get to be on the field for the games. But just to be there during the anthem on a big game, and you sort of feel the nerves from some of those kids, man, and it's so much fun. And I get all hyped up, and I'm like, man, I really got to get this shot and focus here on this kickoff. I'm all pumped up, but I just think that sense of community all around is really what makes it. The smells, the sights, the feel of it all is special.
Greg, how about you?
If I could just say, at Local 3, we kind of have that community feel, too. We've got maybe you guys playing in the background so we can keep track of scores. Everyone's going yelling scores back and forth at each other, trying to see who's got what highlight, what band did you say is next. So that's a big community thing at Local 3 as well. But just to be out there and to know from personal experience what this means in the life of a high school student, because you have, if you do band or football 1 year or 4 years, you have, at this stage of life, I know you have a limited number of Friday nights that you're going to get to take all that in, and you just want to grab every one of them and say, smell the grass, eat a hot dog, yell as just enjoy every one of these because they're so limited and they're so special.
I'm just curious, you brought up the news station. I'm curious on TV side, what's the best TV gig and why is it not meteorology? And also, obviously, you all come from different areas. We've got Southerners, we got Pennsylvania represented. Are there any rivalries in the newsroom, or do you have special your team lost, or just stuff? Talk about the TV side of covering and kind of what is it like over at Local 3?
Yeah, that's a good portion. We've had a lot of them, and at least some terms are I guess the rooting interest, if you will. I know one of our morning executive producers is a big Gators fan, so when that game comes up every year, he's always giving everybody some
the chop.
Yeah, and obviously you have some Georgia fans, and then in Alabama, they pretty much got the SEC covered, which is great, and it's fun. And then that's I guess you mentioned being a Pennsylvania guy, and then that's where I feel like my specialty comes in because I just love to stir the pot. Mm-hmm.
I said chop, by the way, just to stir the pot. I know it's a chomp.
We love it. That's perfect.
The biggest rivalry in the newsroom. I'm gonna disclose your secret. The biggest rivalry at Local 3 News is for that 3-degree guarantee. David Carnes and this guy right here. I mean, he lets him have it when he misses it by 1 or 2.
I wonder who tailgates better in your opinion, up north or down south? Who's a better tailgate?
That's a fun one, and it's completely two different vibes right. too. You know, and then that's one thing I think traditionally based. I think down here is better. Just the traditions of it. I feel like there's more. It's like an old school pride sort of thing that kind of goes into the sort of tailgate aspect. I will say up north, when it comes to the party scene, it's a little bit more hardcore in terms of the consumption of maybe some beverages before the game. Being a Penn State grad, there's nothing but just fields of. Just fields of people that come out and it's all about the party aspect. Whereas I feel like here in the South, it's more tradition based and in a good way. I mean, the biggest thing I think for me was always I think the attire is completely different. If you go to for example, a Penn State tailgate, you see everyone there, everyone's in game day gear in terms of they're wearing a jersey, a shirt, they got their face painted and stuff like that, and you see that down here, but you see a lot of sundresses and tucked in collared shirts, polos, yeah, and you do not see that up north, and so that's what was the biggest I think thing for me, and that's where I think the tradition side of it comes in, that Southern hospitality, old school sort of feel comes into play. But they're both unique in their own way, and I think that's what makes it all great.
Well, gentlemen, let's dive right back into it. We were talking bands and, off air, that sort of thing. And, just kind of the unique environments. Greg, we were talking about, when you were the drum major at the University of Tennessee in 1994, we were talking off air. I think you, obviously being drum major, was the main reason why Peyton Manning was the quarterback he was at Tennessee 3 years after the fact, right? So
hand selected him. Yeah, from the stands. I said, he's the guy. Jerry Colquitt went down. We were sad to see that, but I said, that guy's last name is a pretty good one, so let's get him in there.
We talked about unique environments, and kind of briefly talked about the Gator Bowl that year. I was obviously in Gainesville with construction going on, with the Jaguars moving into the stadium up there in Jacksonville, where the Gator Bowl is normally played. It had to be a weird feeling knowing that you're wearing the orange and white going into a place where they have not been too friendly to Tennessee fans in the past.
Yeah, there was not as much hate in the swamp as we were accustomed to. So it was an interesting thing, and an interesting thing to be there that time of year too, because the thing I remember most about playing Florida in Gainesville is where they sit the visiting band. Oh, that setting sun will light you up and set you on fire. And if you hadn't learned to hide some sunscreen in your uniform somewhere to continually reapply, you were in trouble on the way home. You were beat red and hurting.
So outside Neyland Stadium, what was your favorite environment to be a part of the Pride?
Oh, that's a good question. LSU is always an experience, especially if you can get there for a night game. Between the hedges, you hear about it all the time, and then you go and you get the full experience, and it's incredible. So many great places to visit, and especially for the bowl games. If you get to go to New Orleans for a Sugar Bowl, if you get to go to Florida to do anything for a bowl game and just be down at the beach in January or late December or something, all those. And I'm sorry to be so wishy-washy and not have a one for sure, but gosh, I wouldn't trade any of them.
Ben, how about you? Because you've covered a lot of these games in these environments, at Local 3 during your time there. Is there one that sticks out to you? Obviously, Neyland Stadium is special, especially on a big game day like against Florida or Georgia. But is there one on the road that speaks out to you? It could even be a national championship atmosphere that you've had a chance to cover as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember the first time I went to the Sugar Bowl to be in the Superdome. That's why that one was like, hey, this is a pretty cool moment, because that's obviously a historic venue. But you know what? That's a good. I finally got down to Tuscaloosa this past fall. That was fun, getting a chance to do that. But yeah, the national championship game out in Los Angeles, SoFi Stadium, Georgia, TCU was crazy, because you think it rains a handful of years out, or a handful of days a year out there, and we're out there. They're playing TCU. It's a blowout, and it was raining the entire day, and that's not an enclosed facility. It's like a canopy over top. So I remember going back and watching some of our interviews that we did on the field. It looks like it's just pouring down rain there, which it was like a swirling rain that was sort of happening in that facility during that, because it wasn't an enclosed thing, and it was open. So a lot of the rain was sort of getting in when it was sideways and whatnot. And I remember where they had the auxiliary media, where they had us, was like pretty much the tippity top of one of the sections all the way up top. I went up to sit in like where they had me assigned, sat down, looked over the edge, said, nope, I'm going back down. I'm like, I'm not doing this up here. It was cold. It was wet because it was swirling, and it was just entirely too high for me. And at that point, Georgia had already pretty much put the game away in the first quarter. I'm like, we'll just go back down at the field level, photography room, hang out, work on some other things while this game finishes out.
In that Alabama national championship game, didn't you have the perfect spot down in the corner for that? Was it the Jalen Hurts pass that just came right
Paul
to
Shaheen
you?
Did.
Yeah,
Paul
Shaheen.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the Benz, yeah.
Yep. Beautiful. That's a beautiful venue, by the way. If you haven't been to the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, just get down there and do it.
That one's a good one. But, I mean, for me, since I've been here, and it's one of the best experiences that I've ever had to do as a sports fan, and I'm not even a fan of either of these two teams, but the Tennessee-Alabama game 2 years ago, being on the field for that, the game-winning kick, and being, I mean, smack dab in the middle of the field while they rushed it, and it was just a cloud of smoke. It smelled like I, walked into a bar, and fearing for my life as these people were but they were just so happy, and it was so much fun. I mean, I was, from point A to point B, watching them carry this goalpost out of the stadium, and that's where becoming a sports fan you just appreciate. Because like I said, I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm just happy. I'm just enjoying knowing that this is a big time thing and being able to experience that. That one ranks up high for me. And it will for a long time. Just to be there during that historic moment and how much fun it was, especially with an unbiased look, being like, this is just great to be here. This is entertainment for me, and this was an awesome game to be on the field for.
Secondhand smoke in a big orange victory on the third Saturday in October.
No doubt about it.
Let's go to the phone lines 267-1023 and Doc Hollywood. Welcome to Off the Bench Radio on the Talk Monster. What's up?
Hey, good evening, gentlemen. Love that subject, football and high school football here. I think that's going into my 24th consecutive year, guys, on that Coca-Cola Red Zone.
Yep, you are our guy when it comes to Bradley Central Bears updates. So you looking forward for a big year for Coach Floyd's squad once again?
Well, they lost a lot on the offense and defense. I think only one returner on offense or so, a few on defense there. What a great season it was. What a pleasure after all these. I've suffered through some 0-10, 1-9 seasons.
Yep.
Over this course of 24 years. What a pleasure, Boo Carter and company there. It was. Bradley walked away with the state championship in 1976 at 13-0. Well, I got to experience the 13-0, but we came up short there in that next playoff game. But I was really, really enjoyed this last season. From the very first game I done, guys, it was the Gerald Riggs, the game of the century. Gerald Riggs came, had that undefeated Red Bank team, I believe. Bill Price coached at that time. Bradley Central went into Red Bank. Bradley came up quite short, 41-14 tonight. That night, that was my first game. Of course, Gerald Riggs and those guys went on to win the state championship over there, MTSU there. From that, man, from the Saudi Daisy game, and probably 10 years into the red zone, where it was just a flood. There was sewage coming up out of the field, and nobody knew it. I toughed that game out. I mean, it wasn't just raining; it was monsoon.
That's a crappy situation, wasn't it?
When you talk about bands there, and Mr. Glover, I didn't know you'd been the band at UT. My respect levels just got higher and higher and higher. Seriously,
excellent.
One of the bands there. Of course, these guys will tell you off the air. I'm a disco guy, and I know that East Ridge put on a pretty good show probably 10, 12 years ago. They had a halftime thing. Bradley was playing them, and they had a disco ball out there. Did you ever incorporate any disco balls or anything?
Great question.
I think we may have worked in some disco music, but I was under the tutelage of Dr. Julian. I don't think he would have let us put on our Staying Alive moves out there. Although he did let the sousaphones do a kick line for T for tuba, as it were. So, that's fun stuff. I bet that was Perry Vandergriff was the director out in East Ridge. I bet you he was a former Pride of the Southland alumni. We lost him way too soon. He had a wonderful program churning at that time.
It was a memorable night there for the bands there. Very, very good. Well, thanks for letting me chime in here, guys. There, I'll look forward to catching you guys, and hopefully there'll be another rendition of the Red Zone this year.
We'll get it cranked up a week from Friday on the 23rd, so we'll be waiting for you to call in with those Bear updates from 8 to 11 next week, okay?
Thanks, Doc.
Will do, guys. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks, Doc Hollywood. Appreciate it.
I will truly say Ben Bobick, sports director over there, I've been Chattanooga my whole life, and there are some greats. I'm not going to cast any doubts on anybody out there, but he truly is one of the best. Most creative. It's always fun. You could tell he cares about it. If you're watching sports on TV locally, you go with Bobick. And
these two guys are willing to come in here and talk with us, so they're up there at the top of the list now for sure.
That bumps them up. And then just Greg Glover's his list is long. I know he's interviewed presidents, Dancing with the Stars, Olympics, Pavarotti. obviously nothing's probably bigger than running through the Power T and being a drum major for the University of Tennessee.
Oh, listen, just a quick story. Sorry, my mom always wanted me to be a preacher. See, and that I didn't take to it, but there are some times when in the stands at Knoxville, the prayer used to be an actual person sitting beside me. Now it's recorded, and there's sometimes when that recording doesn't go off. So I have my prayer at the ready, and I always call my mom to say, "Mom, I led 100,000 people in prayer today."
There you go.
And that just makes her day. So yeah, got it all going on.
We got about 2 minutes left, and during our summer series, we asked this question about players and coaches and their superstitions. Well, let's throw it to the TV side. Is there like any kind of tradition or superstitions that you guys may do like before a show or like before you start doing like a news drop or something on site?
Yeah, I always go through the production to go into the booth, and I always get them riled up. And then after a while, they still when I come in, they start clapping and going crazy. And so I go in there to tell them what I want in the thing. And so I feel off when I don't get a chance to walk through production, get my applause, to get everybody ready for sports, and to walk into the studio. So now sometimes during Friday Night Football, I can't do that because it's a little hectic sometimes at the show start. But on a perfect day, I'll usually walk through there, get everybody excited, and do it. And I do feel weird when I don't get a chance to walk through there. It's kind of like the same thing every time.
Greg, we got about a minute left. Is there one that you might have had? It doesn't have to be TV. It could have been when you were, being the drum major for the Pride too,
or on stage.
Well,
that's true.
I always take a knee and give thanks for everything that I get to do with my life, and I feel like that gets everything centered. I'm sorry to be sappy like that, but that's my thing. But yeah, especially in Knoxville, my year as drum majors when we went from AstroTurf to grass, and so you'd always want to get down and get some of that grass just to make sure everything was okay and before you. But the greatest thing to me was realizing one day that, Tennessee has one drum major. I think Alabama has 3 or 4, but in Tennessee it's single guy or gal these days, and you've got that whistle. And one day it dawned on me: if I don't blow this whistle, nothing happens. So you got pregame right there, depending on that whistle.